Peace be with you all. We're always hearing about the new evangelization, which actually is the call of the church to all of us. And it is important for us to understand a little bit more so that we can properly respond to this call to the new evangelization. And mind you, not many really understand what is the new evangelization. And if you go to your parishes and you ask about the new evangelization, most probably there will be a very tentative response. Or if you ask what programs do we have for the new evangelization, their prospect of that is trying to reach out to nominal, to lapsed Catholics, and to cultural Catholics, and to bring them back to God and back to the fold, back to the sheepfold of the church. And that's a very, very big challenge. And that would be my definition of a Christian. What is a Christian? A Christian is someone who has met Christ, is living Christ, and is sharing Christ. So, we see that this in the ways that the Lord has given us will put their backs behind all of this. So, we're going to be the backbone for this work. Later on, the parishioners who are renewed will take up the movement, will participate in the movement itself, and that's the way that it actually can grow. But CFCFFL is very much needed to provide that trust. Secondly, you can see from the way that I've described it that it focuses on the initial proclamation of the gospel, the kerygma, so that people might hear about Christ and be introduced to Christ, and hopefully that gets everything going. And then the sharing part. But the living Christ part is something that still needs to happen, and that's where the parish, with all of its resources, participates. But you see that as far as people like you and I called to CFCFFL, we have more than just that initial proclamation of the gospel. We have many aspects that are not offered in the Live Christ, Share Christ movement. By the way, after the CLS, which we call LCS, Life in Christ Seminar, there is a monthly prayer assembly. So basically, that's it. So, no households, no family ministries, no social ministries, no anniversaries, no conferences, none of the fullness and richness of life that we know and we have come to depend on for the vibrancy of our own life. So there will be people who will be called to this type of life that we have in CFCFFL. And that's why our evangelization, aside from helping out with LCSC, ought to continue. And in fact, we need to do strategic person-to-person evangelization even more. No more announcements in parishes because that will be handled by LCSC. But our strategic person-to-person evangelization, which was our gift, which is our charism, that is what we need to do. And CFCFFL also needs to grow, especially with the young people, the young couples, and the singles and the youth, and of course everyone else. So there really is still a very important place for the life of CFCFFL. But what is in this for us? Well, it is the great privilege to be of service to our church, to God and to the church. You know, we've drawn deeper into the heart of the church. Previous CFC was what you would call the parallel community, that autonomous trans-parochial community that I was mentioning that some pastors had difficulty with. But you would describe us and the institutional church as the two rails, the railroad, the railway, one is CFC, one is the institutional church, going in the same direction but never intersecting. We have our own life, and it is not the life in the parish. The parish has their own life, but those who are part of new ecclesial movements do not fully participate in that life, but rather in their movement's life. So that's how it was. And then with the restoration in 2007, we were led to enter more deeply into the life of the church. First of all, we consecrated ourselves to Mama Mary. Secondly, we came up with our 7 core values. One of the core values is being a servant to the church. And that's when we told our people, go and serve in your parishes. And we encourage you, you can even make use of whatever programs you go and see how you can serve. And the way that, well, even from before, people had been serving in their parishes, but the big difference was, prior to that, whenever we have brethren who serve in their parishes, we would still ask them, what is your service in community? I mean, that's your service in your parish, fine, that's great. But what is your service in community? But under this, with the restoration, what we actually were saying to them, okay, if you serve in your parish, and that is a service that, well, takes up your time and your energy, that is considered your service in CFCFFL. We don't look for you to still do something for community because you already are. We are a servant to the church, and so what you do for the parish is what you also do for God and for our community. So we entered more deeply into the life of the church. Now, this is another step deeper into the heart of the church. Because seemingly there's nothing in it for us. No recruitment, no greater numbers of members, but just a total self-gain. But that in itself is precisely what it is about. It is that self-emptying. It is that kenosis, where we ought to have reached a point after 32 years, we're not just about serving God, but really we're trying to look at the interests of our community. But now we are just serving God, period. We are serving God and His church, period. And there's nothing in it for us except the satisfaction and joy of having served God and His church. So, brothers and sisters, I believe that this is a blessing from God that is our lay response to the call to the new evangelization. And the whole point is to mainstream Catholic lay evangelization. Not just the few thousands or the many thousands that are in CFCFFL or other renewal communities, but the millions, in order to reach the billions that are in all those parishes, not just in this nation, but throughout the world. God has given us an effective way, or if you will, a methodology and a spirituality that is geared towards raising witnesses to the ends of the earth. That is what God has given us. And now we come to our church saying, this is our offering. And I believe that we will be blessed tremendously by this. But much more importantly, that yes, in these very challenging times, in the life of the church and in the life of the world, then there is a way of doing the so-called new evangelization. There is a way of reaching those 80% Catholics or even more, 99%. There is a way of strengthening the bride of Christ prior to the return of Jesus Himself. One time Jesus said, talking about the end, when the Son of Man returns, will He find faith on earth? The way things are going now, hardly any faith on earth. In fact, some people talk about the little flock, that it really is a small church of truly faithful Catholics. But what will be at the end is up to God. But what is our role now until the second coming of the Lord Jesus is to give of ourselves, including what the Lord has given us in 32 years, and make that offering to the church so that the possibility of a larger flock, a faithful flock, a stronger church will be there at the end of time. And to me, brothers and sisters, this is what the new evangelization is all about. It is very exciting. It is very challenging. We do not have to search for what is the new evangelization, what is the program for the new evangelization.